Now, 11 charities working in Daadab, the world's largest refugee camp, have added their voices to those calling on Kenya to reconsider its decision to close down the camp. Daadab and Kakuma are both home to at least 600,000 refugees, and that includes nearly 350,000 in Daadab alone. The NGOs include the International Rescue Committee, Oxfam, Save the Children and the Norwegian Refugee Council. They've all warned that closing the camps violates the general principle of voluntary repatriation and puts the refugees at risk, many of them being women and children.
I do think there is a burden on the Kenyan government to provide for these almost 600,000 refugees. They're not alone. The international community and donor governments do provide assistance. But I think what we've seen over the past few years is that the Syria crisis has overshadowed the needs in this region. And so there has been funding issues, and I think there is a need to do more. What we're really hoping is that the government would change their mind and that they will allow the refugees to stay until such a time that the conditions are conducive for mass return or other durable solutions that may be possible.
Now, of course, the potential closure of these camps is a major issue for international governments. Let's get you more on that now. CCTV's Daniel Reintjes is standing by for us from the United States. Daniel, what is the Obama administration saying with regards to Kenya's decision to close its refugee camps?
Well, in the last couple of hours, I've actually had a statement from the US State Department, and I'll outline it here. Firstly, they say they are deeply concerned about the decision to potentially close down these refugee camps. Secondly, they praise the fact that Kenya's had this long-standing role of taking the burden of hundreds of thousands of refugees. Thirdly, they say that Kenya has international obligations. And lastly, that they want to continue to encourage what has been a process of voluntary repatriation of some of the refugees that was an agreement between UNHCR, Somalia and Kenya. So they're taking a line where they are concerned, but at the same time they're clearly wanting to work with Kenya to try to resolve some of the issues.
And what kind of formation might that take when you say they want to work with Kenya? Is the United States likely to put pressure on Kenya to reverse its decision, or might they actually offer more donor support to help shoulder the refugee burden for host countries like Kenya?
Well, potentially the United States has some leverage in that they are the largest donor country that helps deal with this issue. But my reading of this, although it's not based on any statement from the Obama administration, is that there's not really in this space much room for finger wagging, given the rhetoric that's come out of the United States political process and also in Europe on refugees. And the Syria crisis obviously has taken precedent. So I imagine that the US will be pointing out to the Kenyans that this potentially could be a very counterproductive move if they were to carry out this threat to forcibly return Somalis to their home country, given that, Somalis with nothing have very few options and might actually play into the hands of al-Shabaab. Secondly, it's going to be a very impractical step to bring out at least 300,000 refugees to another country. But I think fundamentally, there is some domestic politics involved here. But also, I think there is a case by the Kenyans that they may be trying to make, which is that they need extra resources to be able to not only handle the humanitarian aspects, but also the security aspects of their current responsibilities. So I think people here in Washington are doubtful that they will completely carry out their threats to repatriate hundreds of thousands of refugees. But at the same time, they see a case for coming back to the table and seeing what practically can be done to begin to mitigate some of the problems that Kenya has outlined in handling so many refugees on its territory.
Certainly a similar sentiment being expressed by NGOs who are also looking for another alternative. Daniel Reintjes, live for us there in Washington.